Ethan Cole was not the kind of man who believed in destiny. He believed in broken engines, delayed schedules, and the usual headaches of running a small freighter on the trade lanes of the Outer Rim. His ship had sputtered into Valora 9 half dead, forcing him to dock in the modest colony and leave the vessel in the hands of local mechanics. That was supposed to be the end of it. Just a stopover, a temporary inconvenience. He had no idea his entire life was about to change because of something as ordinary as carrying a stranger's bags. The markets of Valora 9 were unlike anything Ethan had seen. The Valari were a graceful people, tall and silver-skinned, their homes carved directly from the violet stone that dotted the planet. Their society radiated quiet orderliness. They bartered politely, avoided confrontation, and seemed almost ritualistic in their daily habits. To Ethan, raised on the chaotic bustle of Earth's megacities, the calmness felt surreal. It was in the middle of this calm that he noticed her, a bent, elderly Valari woman struggling beneath a mountain of goods. Her arms quivered under the weight of crystalline fruits that gleamed like shards of frozen sunlight. Rolls of embroidered fabric pressed against her chest, threatening to topple with each shaky step. The crowd saw her but pretended not to. Ethan noticed the sideways glances, the way others subtly adjusted their paths to avoid getting involved. Humans had their flaws. Ethan knew that well. But one thing drilled into him since childhood was simple. When you see someone struggling, you help. It wasn't even a decision. He was already moving before he realized it. "Here, let me get that for you," he said, his voice casual but warm. The old woman blinked at him as if he had spoken an impossible phrase. Up close, her skin shimmered. Like liquid metal, her face lined with the soft creases of age. Her antennae twitched, and her large, reflective eyes widened. "You would carry another's weight?" she asked, almost whispering, as though testing the words. Ethan adjusted the load onto his shoulders with ease. Compared to wrestling cargo crates in low gravity, this was nothing. He gave her a reassuring grin. Of course, no one should have to haul this much alone. Her gaze lingered on him, sharp and searching. Then, almost imperceptibly, her shoulders straightened. She led him through winding paths until they reached her dwelling, a domed structure that glowed faintly under the evening sun. When he set the bags down at her door, she did something unexpected. The woman grasped his wrist. Her grip, though frail-looking, was surprisingly strong, her fingers cool against his skin. Her eyes glimmered with a strange mix of gratitude and solemnity. "The ancestors bear witness," she said firmly. "You have fulfilled the rite of burdens." Ethan blinked. "The what now?" "The rite of burdens," she repeated, as though it should be obvious. "It is an oath woven into our oldest traditions. To lift the weight of an elder is to prove yourself worthy beyond measure. Tradition demands that my lineage be bound to yours." Ethan felt his stomach flip. Surely this was just flowery speech, some cultural metaphor he didn't understand. He laughed awkwardly, trying to diffuse the sudden tension. "Happy to help, ma'am. Really, just being neighborly." But the elder only nodded with an air of unshakable certainty. "You shall marry my granddaughter." The words hit him like a plasma bolt. His laugh died in his throat. "I'm sorry, what?" She released his wrist, her expression calm and final, as though the matter were settled beyond any appeal. "It is done." Ethan stumbled back a step, his mind racing. He had come here for engine repairs, not whatever this was. Yet the elder's conviction left no room for doubt. She wasn't joking. She wasn't exaggerating. In her eyes, the simple act of kindness he had just performed wasn't simple at all. It was binding. That night, lying awake in his rented quarters, Ethan tried to convince himself it was a misunderstanding. Maybe she was senile. Maybe he had mistranslated. Maybe tomorrow it would all make sense. But deep down, He felt the weight of her words. On Earth, kindness was just kindness. On Valora 9, it might very well be destiny. The morning after his encounter, with Elder Sanira, Ethan Cole tried his best to convince himself it had been nothing but a cultural misunderstanding. He had carried some groceries, exchanged a few words with an alien grandmother, and that was all. The idea that he had somehow been promised to a stranger was absurd, but as he wandered through the market district of Valora 9, he noticed something unsettling. Whispers followed him. Alien merchants stopped their quiet haggling to stare. Conversations hushed as he passed, and more than once Ethan caught the words, "the chosen" and "the bound one." At first he thought it was paranoia, but by midday there was no denying it. The entire city knew. He ducked into a food stall, trying to shake off the unease. The Valari vendor, normally reserved, bowed low as he handed over a loaf of spiced bread. "An honor to serve the bridegroom of Liravel," the man said reverently. Ethan nearly dropped the bread. "Wait, what? Bridegroom?" But the vendor only gave a cryptic smile as though Ethan already knew the answer. By the time Ethan returned to his rented quarters, his nerves were on edge. He opened the door only to freeze. Someone was waiting for him. She stood tall, her silhouette outlined by the soft violet glow of the alien sun through the window. Her skin shimmered faintly, a living sheen like polished silver. Long hair, dark as midnight, was threaded with delicate silver bands that caught the light. Her eyes, stormy gray, piercing and calm, studied him with unflinching intensity. "You are the human who carried my grandmother's burdens," she said. Ethan's mouth went dry. He recognized her instantly, even though he'd never seen her before. This could only be the granddaughter. He stammered, raising his hands defensively. "Look, I didn't mean any offense. I just helped her out. That's all." The woman did not waver. "I am Lyra Vel, daughter of House Vel. By our laws, by tradition, you are now promised to me." Ethan felt his heart skip. "Promised? As in marriage? Already?" Her expression didn't shift. "Correct. On Valora 9, the right of burdens is binding. When one bears the weight of an elder, it is proof of loyalty and strength. The ancestor spirits have witnessed this. Our fates are joined." Ethan rubbed his forehead, trying to process. On Earth, we usually take things slower. Dating, courtship, time to get to know each other. You don't just jump straight to, "Hey, nice to meet you. Now let's get married." Something flickered in Liravel's eyes. Not mockery, but curiosity. She tilted her head slightly, as though studying an alien specimen in return. "Your customs are strange," she admitted, "but intriguing. If you require dating, then we shall do this." Ethan blinked. "Wait, you mean you're actually willing to try it my way?" She nodded once, decisive. "If you are to be my bondmate, I must understand you. You must also understand me. That is acceptable." From that moment, his days on Valora 9 took on a new rhythm. Wherever he went, Lyra Vel was there. She accompanied him to the markets, guiding him through the intricacies of Valari trade. She introduced him to her peers, who regarded him with cautious curiosity. When they passed the training circles, she even challenged him to sparring bouts. Ethan discovered quickly that Lyra Vel was no sheltered noblewoman. She was a warrior, trained in the Valari style of staff combat. She moved with liquid precision, striking with a speed that left Ethan bruised and breathless. Yet when he countered with human improvisation, ducking low, throwing feints, using momentum in ways the Valari did not, she laughed, a clear, ringing sound that startled him more than her blows. Outside of combat, she revealed another side. Lyra Vel had a sharp intellect, asking endless questions about Earth, its oceans, its storms, its predators. She listened raptly when Ethan described wild horses running across plains or lightning splitting the sky. To her, Earth was a world of untamed wonders, terrifying yet beautiful. Despite his protests, despite his insistence that this whole situation was absurd, Ethan found himself enjoying her company. She was fiercely independent, yet compassionate, proud yet willing to learn. She didn't treat him as an outsider to be tolerated, but as a partner to be tested. Still, unease lingered in the back of his mind. He hadn't chosen this path. He hadn't signed up to be the central figure of some alien marriage rite. He told himself, again and again, that he would find a way to politely back out. But then came the summons. A message arrived bearing the seal of the Grand Council of Valora 9. It instructed both Ethan Cole and Liravel to appear before the governing assembly the next day. The tone was not optional, it was a command. The Grand Council of Valora 9 convened within a hall that seemed carved from starlight itself. The chamber's crystalline dome glowed faintly, etched with glyphs that pulsed like living veins of light. Rows of tiered seats arched high above. Ethan, filled with counselors draped in flowing silver robes. Their antennae twitched rhythmically, an unspoken language of judgment and curiosity. Ethan stood in the center of the chamber's floor, feeling terribly small and out of place. His palms were damp, his heart unsteady. Beside him stood Liravel, upright and unflinching, her expression calm as though she had stood in this hall 100 times before. The weight of countless alien eyes bore down on him, and for the first time in his life, Ethan truly felt like the outsider, an interloper caught in laws he could barely comprehend. A voice rang out, low and commanding, amplified by the acoustics of the chamber. It belonged to Councillor Keltas, the eldest of the assembly, whose skin bore the faint patina of centuries. Human Ethan Cole, Keltas intoned, "You have enacted the right of burdens upon Elder Sanira, by law, by tradition, and by the witness of the ancestor spirits, this bond cannot be broken." The words echoed like a hammer blow. Ethan swallowed hard, forcing himself to speak. His voice cracked at first, but he steadied it. "With respect, counselors, where I come from, this isn't how things work. Carrying someone's bags, helping. An elder, that's just being decent. It doesn't mean marriage or oaths or anything permanent. You're making too much of a simple gesture." A ripple of murmurs traveled through the chamber. Councillor Vela leaned forward, her storm-gray eyes sharp. "On Earth, perhaps. But here, kindness is not trivial. Among the Valari, such an act is rare and sacred. Many can fight, many can bargain. Few will shoulder another's burden with no gain for themselves. That is why the right has endured. It is proof of heart, of character. The highest proof." Ethan wanted to argue, but his words stuck. He couldn't deny the truth in what she said. In the market, no one else had helped the elder. Only he had. To the Valari, that must have seemed extraordinary. Then Liravel spoke. Her voice was steady, her gaze fixed on the council. "I do not oppose this binding. The human has shown qualities worthy of respect. Courage, patience, and wit. He has trained beside me, and I have seen his strength. I believe he could be a worthy mate." Ethan's breath caught. She said it without hesitation, without shame. There was no mockery in her tone. She wasn't simply bowing to tradition. She meant it. The counselors leaned back, antennae flicking as they considered. Their silence pressed down heavier than any words. Ethan's mind raced. He wanted to protest, to shout that this was madness, that he hadn't chosen any of this. But when he looked at Liravel, truly looked, he saw only honesty in her eyes. She wasn't forcing him. She was accepting him. Councillor Keltas lifted a hand, and the chamber stilled. "It is decided," he declared. "The right is valid. The bond shall stand. In 7 cycles, the binding ceremony will be held. The human and the daughter of House Vel will be joined before the eyes of all Valora 9. The announcement struck Ethan like a physical blow. The crowd that had gathered in the upper galleries erupted in a low hum of approval. Some clapped their hands together in ritual rhythm. Others chanted words he didn't understand. To them, this was a triumph, a joining of bloodlines, a strengthening of tradition. But to Ethan, it felt like a trap closing. When they left the chamber, his thoughts were a storm. He had come here for repairs. He had expected nothing more than a short layover before returning to the stars. Now he was entangled in something far larger than himself. An entire world had placed expectations on his shoulders. His choices no longer belonged only to him. And yet, beneath the panic, another feeling stirred. He remembered Lyravel's laughter in the training circle, the way she had listened, eyes wide, as he described Earth's oceans and storms. The way she had stood beside him in that council hall, unwavering, when she could have easily denounced the whole affair. The days after the council's judgment unfolded like a dream Ethan Cole could not wake from. The announcement of the binding ceremony had spread across Valora 9 faster than fire across dry plains. Every street corner, every market stall, every gathering of Valeri hummed with excitement. To them, it was more than a marriage. It was a symbol, the uniting of 2 worlds, the fulfillment of a right untouched by outsiders for centuries. To Ethan, it was disorienting. He had landed on this planet as a weary freighter captain with a busted engine. Now, he couldn't walk. A street without someone bowing, offering him gifts, or whispering bridegroom of stars as though he were some mythic figure stepped out of prophecy. His quarters overflowed with ceremonial robes, rare foods, and handcrafted trinkets pressed upon him by eager artisans. Children followed him in laughing packs, calling his name in sing-song voices. Everywhere he went, he felt eyes on him. Part honor, part expectation. And always there was Lyravel. If Ethan was the storm-tossed stranger, she was the anchor. Each morning she arrived without fail, leading him through the rituals of preparation. She took him to the craftspeople who wove his ceremonial garments, correcting his clumsy attempts to wear them. She introduced him to her kin and comrades, ensuring he was not treated as an outsider, but as one of their own. Yet beyond duty, there was curiosity. She seemed determined to understand him, to peel away the layers of his humanity one by one. They sparred often in the training circles. At first, Ethan stumbled through the motions, his earthborn reflexes no match for her precision. Her staff was an extension of her body, flowing like water, striking with unerring accuracy. But Ethan was adaptable. Where she was disciplined, he was improvisational. Where she expected rigid form, he brought surprise. Soon he was slipping past her guard with feints she hadn't anticipated. Each time he did, she rewarded him with laughter, clear, unrestrained, and startlingly beautiful. Outside the circle, she showed him the hidden wonders of her world. They wandered beneath forests of crystalline fungi, their bioluminescence painting the caverns in shifting blues and purples. She told him stories of her people's history, their battles with raiders, the famines that had nearly ended them, the rituals that had kept their culture alive through centuries of hardship. In turn, she demanded to hear of Earth. Ethan described oceans so vast they drowned the horizon, storms that split the sky with fire, beasts that stalked jungles, and savannas. She listened with eyes wide, drinking in each detail as though Earth itself were a storybook she longed to step into. And slowly, almost against his will, Ethan began to change. At first, he clung to his resistance, reminding himself this wasn't his choice. He hadn't agreed to any of it. He was a victim of circumstance, trapped in alien tradition. But as the days passed, he found the resentment softening. Lyravel was no jailer. She was his equal, Curious, fierce, compassionate. She didn't demand his compliance. She invited his partnership. One evening, under the light of Valora Nine's twin moons, they walked together in silence. The sky shimmered with alien constellations, strange and beautiful. Ethan, lost in thought, finally spoke. "Do you regret this?" he asked. "Being tied to someone who didn't even mean to take part in your tradition?" Liravel stopped, turning to face him. Her expression was unreadable, but her voice was steady. "No, I regret nothing. You carried her burdens, and now perhaps you carry mine. That is no curse, it is honor. Do you regret it?" Ethan hesitated. Days ago, he would have shouted, yes. But now, he thought of her laughter, of her listening eyes, of the way she had stood beside him in the council hall without fear. He thought of the way this alien world, once strange and suffocating, had begun to feel oddly like home. At first, he admitted softly, "I did. I felt trapped. But now, I'm not sure anymore. Maybe fate's just got a twisted sense of humor." For the first time, a rare and genuine smile touched her lips. "Perhaps your kind was meant to find us." The words settled deep in Ethan's chest, quiet and profound. In that moment, he no longer felt like a foreigner adrift in an alien culture. He felt like someone standing on the threshold of belonging, but fate was not finished weaving its threads. Daniel stood at the heart of the Tessari ceremonial chamber, the air shimmering with threads of light projected by crystalline lanterns. The hall itself was alive with sound, alien voices chanting in harmonic layers, creating a resonance that seemed to vibrate against the marrow of his bones. At the center dais, Elder Matari sat tall and radiant, her silver carapace gleaming under the soft glow, her gaze steady and expectant. Before him stood Kira, dressed in ceremonial attire. Daniel could only describe as equal parts regal and otherworldly. Flowing strands of iridescent silk clung to her form, interwoven with bioluminescent veins that pulsed faintly with her heartbeat. Her eyes, bright with determination, never wavered from his. This was it, the so-called engagement ritual that had been building since that one simple act of kindness weeks ago. Daniel was no stranger to pressure, but the weight of an entire alien species' traditions was unlike anything he had ever known. He swallowed hard, adjusting the collar of the formal robes they had given him. The garment was clearly designed for someone with more joints than a human possessed, and he felt ridiculous wearing it. Still, he stood tall, refusing to let his nerves show. The elder's voice carried over the chamber. "Daniel James Carter, human of Sul. You have given aid freely, without expectation. You have earned our trust, our gratitude, and by law, our bond. Do you accept the path laid before you? Do you accept union with Kira of House Matari?" Daniel's first instinct was to run. He could already imagine explaining this to Earth's diplomats, or worse, his parents back in Wisconsin. "Hey, Mom. Dad, I carried groceries for an alien grandma, and now I'm engaged to her granddaughter. That would be one for the family record books." But then his eyes met Kira's again. She wasn't pleading, nor was she indifferent. She stood there as an equal, as if daring him to say no, daring him to step away from what fate, or perhaps stubborn alien tradition, had placed before them. His mind flickered back through everything that had happened. The way she had translated patiently when he stumbled over Tessari words, the way she laughed at his clumsy jokes, the way she challenged him to spar in the training chambers, her strikes sharp and precise, but never cruel. He remembered how her touch steadied him when he was overwhelmed by their customs, and how her presence turned the alien world from something intimidating into something strangely welcoming. Perhaps this wasn't a trap. Perhaps it was an opportunity. He drew in a deep breath. "I accept." The chamber erupted in sound. Not applause, but a low, resonant hum that shook the air. Lights flared across the crystal walls as the ritual seal was activated, projecting a symbol above their heads. Two interwoven arcs of silver and blue. Kira's lips curved in the smallest of smiles. She stepped forward, taking his hand in her clawed but surprisingly gentle fingers. "You said yes," she whispered, her tone carrying both relief and amusement. "Yeah," Daniel muttered. "Guess I just signed up for the weirdest marriage in human history." "Not marriage," Kira corrected softly. "Union, a bridge between our peoples. Though—" Her eyes sparkled mischievously. "Marriage is not far off." Elder Matari rose to her feet, her expression solemn yet satisfied. "Let it be known across the stars. The humans of Sol have honored our ways. May this bond mark the beginning of a new chapter, where Tassari and human walk not as strangers, but as kin." For a moment, Daniel felt the gravity of it all settle onto his shoulders. He wasn't just some random tourist anymore. He was now a symbol, living proof that humans could be trusted allies, perhaps even family, to a species that had long kept to themselves. Later that night, when the ceremonies had ended and the halls had quieted, Daniel sat with Kira under a canopy of alien stars. The horizon shimmered with colors no human eye had ever catalogued, shifting hues painting the sky like living fire. "You don't regret it?" she asked, her voice softer now. Stripped of ceremony, Daniel smirked. "Regret? Kira, I helped your grandma carry her groceries. Now I'm engaged to you and possibly responsible for interstellar diplomacy. My life has never been this interesting." She laughed, the sound warm and genuine. For a moment, the galaxy didn't feel so impossibly vast. And somewhere deep down, Daniel realized that maybe, just maybe, he didn't mind this turn of fate at all. End of story.